Sometimes the hardest lessons come from being the only one who doesn't follow the crowd. But those are also the moments that grow the strongest kind of leadership. Hey friends, and welcome back to our Conversation Book Club. This week, we are tackling Chapter 9 of Thomas Kersting's Disconnected, a chapter that speaks directly to one of our deepest parenting instincts, the desire to raise strong, grounded kids who can stand on their own even when it's hard. We all know that it's not always easy to swim against the cultural tide. Sometimes the peer pressure isn't just on the kids, it's on us. So, what does it really mean to raise a leader in a world that rewards followers? On page 169, Kersting shares a story about a parent who got their child an M-rated video game at age 11. They didn't think they were ready, but everyone else was doing it, so it must be okay, and their son was doing well in school besides. He says on page 159, this is a classic example of social conformity. When we give in, we teach them to give in. This quote is something we all see. Whether it's buying a game that's rated too mature or letting your child download a social app early, the pressure to just go along is real. But when we cave, even with good intentions, we model something we didn't mean to, that the crowd gets to decide what's right. We don't need to be perfect parents, but we do need to be intentional. Every no in the face of everyone else is doing it plants a seed. It tells our kids, you don't have to follow the crowd to belong. Standing up to the crowd is not always easy. That's where this next quote, also from page 159, strikes a chord. He said, the problem with this kind of adult peer pressure is that our children learn from us. They model our behavior. We talk a lot about peer pressure in middle school, but rarely do we admit that it happens in the carpool line too. We compare tech rules, curfews, and what's normal, and sometimes that leads us to make choices based not on our own values, but on our fears. Have you ever made a decision out of your worry that your child might be left out rather than what you knew was best? And it's not just parents who feel this pressure. Kids do too, and sometimes they show us what real courage looks like. Here's a story to share with your child that brings that to life. It's called The Group Chat Exit. Ava was the last one in her friend group to get a phone, and when she finally did, the first thing she did was she was added to a massive group chat. At first it was fun, nonstop memes, inside jokes, and plans for the weekend. But then it got mean. One day, someone started teasing another girl from school. Ava didn't like it, but saying something felt risky. Staying silent felt worse. So she sent one message, guys, I don't think this is okay. The chat lit up. Some backed her up, others didn't. The vibe shifted. By the next day, she had been quietly removed from the chat. It stung. But later that week, two girls told her privately, I wanted to say something too, I just didn't know how. And the lesson for kids here is standing up doesn't always make you popular, but it does make you powerful. Sometimes leadership looks like being the first to walk away. And here are some questions that you can ask your kids after reading that. Have you ever been in a situation where you felt pressure to stay quiet? What would you do if someone you liked was doing something you didn't agree with? And it gets harder when the pressure doesn't just come from your peers, but from the child that you love the most. On page 157, 158, Kersting shared that what his father would often say to him, God didn't give you to me for me to trust you. He gave you to me for you to trust me. You don't trust me is a common phrase kids use to try to guilt trip us. It might sound like a plea for independence, but sometimes it's really to test boundaries. And it's okay to say, I trust you to be a good kid, but I still know what you're not ready for. Kids don't just need our trust, they need our strength. They need to know we'll hold the line even when they push, because that's how they learn to hold the line when it matters most. Of course, sometimes the line we're holding is the one between our child and the entire internet. Kersting tells a story about his son not having a phone. He says, and I quote, The things he missed out on are the things I want him to miss: gossip, fake news, inappropriate posts. I don't know about you, but sometimes I feel like we live in a world where social media feels like a social requirement. It's easy to feel that no app means no connection. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if what they're missing is stress, comparison, and pressure? Maybe the question isn't what will they miss if they don't have it? Maybe it's what will they gain if they don't? Sometimes the hardest lessons come from being the only one who doesn't follow the crowd. But those are also the moments that grow the strongest kind of leadership. This reminds me of a story that shows how quiet leadership can start with something as simple as where you sit. Take a moment to read it to your child and chat about it. It's called The Solo Lunch Table. Marcus had been sitting in the same group at lunch since the first day of 6th grade. Same jokes, same snacks, same stories. But one Thursday, he noticed something. They kept making fun of one kid in the lunch line, Sam. Quiet, new, a little awkward, but nice. The teasing wasn't harsh. It was a little stuff, whispers, giggles, imitations, but still it didn't sit right. The next day, Marcus didn't sit at his usual table. He walked over to where Sam was alone, popped open his juice box, and said, "Hey, what's up?" The old table stared. Sam blinked. And then they started talking. By Friday, there were 3 kids at that table. By the next week, 6. And here's a lesson for kids. Being a leader doesn't always mean making speeches or being in charge. Sometimes it just means doing the right thing first and letting others follow your example. And here are a couple of questions that you can ask your child. Have you ever seen someone get left out or picked on? What do you think takes more courage, going along or standing apart? And while we want our kids to show that kind of quiet courage, we can't forget they're still kids. That's why some of the most important leadership moments don't belong to them. They belong to us. Further on in the chapter, Kersting says on page 161 and 162, the best answer I've heard to when should I get my child a smartphone is when you're okay with them watching porn. That's jarring. But it's meant to be. Smartphones aren't toys, they're access points. Even the best kids stumble when temptation lives in their pocket 24/7. That's not a reflection of weakness, it's a reflection of being human. When we delay access, set strong filters, or say not yet, we're not saying we don't trust our kids. We're saying, I trust you enough to protect your mind and your heart. But standing firm isn't just a challenge for kids. It's a defining moment for parents, too. And how we lead sets the tone for how they follow. And another story that I love that you can share with your child if you'd like, but it's really for you. It's called The Birthday Surprise. James was turning 12, and all he wanted was a smartphone. He made the case. All his friends had one. His grades were solid. He promised he'd be careful. His parents heard he talked it over. They loved him. They trusted him. But they also knew that once that door opened, there was no going back. So on his birthday, he opened a gift box and found a watch. Not smart, not flashy, just a real watch. He looked up confused. His mom said gently, "This year, we're giving you the gift of time, not technology." James wasn't thrilled, but months later, he was the one who said to his parents, "Sometimes I'm glad I don't have to deal with all that stuff." And so the lesson for parents is it might not be the present that they want, but it could be the one they'll thank you for later. Leading sometimes means choosing what's best over what's easiest. So I'll ask you a couple of questions. When have you made a hard choice for your child's long-term good? How did you stay grounded in your values when others around you are making different decisions? And what do you hope your child will one day say about the boundaries you set? The watch instead of the phone wasn't just a gift, it was a statement. Every boundary we hold becomes part of the example we're setting. And those examples add up because at the end of the day, leadership starts with us, right where we are, in the everyday choices we make. Kersting wraps it up on page 169. If all your child's friends have phones and yours doesn't because you believe your child is not ready, go with your gut instinct. Don't cave in to the pressure to conform. Leadership isn't about power, it's about integrity. And when we model that, when we do what's right, even when it's unpopular, we teach our kids to do the same. They may groan, they may push, but deep down, they're watching and learning. The goal isn't to raise kids who always agree with us. It's to raise kids who have the strength to stand even when no one else does. Till the next time, keep having those conversations.